right, everybody, welcome to episode 30 of the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. Now, there was this one morning where I had a very important meeting with one of the representatives from the county, and so I needed to go to the government building. Now, this building has everything that's important for the county in it. I mean, there's different offices in regards to things around housing, in regards to zoning rules. There's a clinic in there. There's a computer lab for people that need to use the resources from that. There's options in there in regards to support with finding a job. Anything you can think of is in this building. But one of the important things is one of the agencies that partners with my center is also in this building. Like, literally, when you need some money and you need stuff to come into alignment, you go to this building. This is the building that got everything you need in it. And so I'm on my way to this meeting, and I pull into the parking lot, and it's a nice day. It's early in the morning because I'm gonna go to this meeting and then I'm gonna go to my center later on. So it's like 9 or 10 in the morning, and I'm in a good mood. I just parked. I'm probably still humming whatever song was playing in the car. It must have been something very whimsical, because when I get ready for work or if I'm going somewhere, I like some real upbeat, bright music just to wake me up. You know what I mean? Some folks like to ride to work with like the super hardcore trap music. I'm like, see, you coming to work already pissed off. That's the problem. But anyway, so I walk into this building, and now this is a building that's like 5 or 6 stories, and pretty big, decent sized building, right? So I walk into the building, and normally when you walk in, there is this big giant desk, and it has the security that's right there, and they can also assist and let you know what floor is what and where to go if you need a certain or specific service. To the right, I think there's this big office with a bunch of computers and stuff in it. To the left, there's more offices, and it's just a full out building. And so I walk in, and I notice the lights are off, and so I'm thinking, like, are they closed? No, well, they can't be closed if the door is open when I walked in. These are those nice automatic doors, so I walked right in and everything open, but I don't see anybody at the front desk. I wonder if the power's out. Well, no, the power can't be out because the door is automatically open when I walked in. I don't know. I'm gonna just mind my business and go to my meeting because it's in a few minutes. So I get in the elevator and I get off on my floor, and the lights are off on this floor too. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'm standing in this corridor where you have all the elevators, and I'm confused because, again, the lights are off up here too. Like, what is going on in this building? You know what? Let me hurry up and just go to my meeting real quick, because maybe it's canceled. If the power's out or whatever they got going, I don't know. Maybe one half of the building is missing electricity and the other half it's working. I don't know. But let me just at least let the people from the county see that I was here, and then I'm gonna get up out of here, because clearly something is real funky up in here. I don't understand what's going on. And so I walk into the office where my meeting is supposed to be held. And this is an office that has maybe like 40 people in it, and there's a conference room. And my meeting was gonna be in the conference room, but to get to the conference room, you go through another lobby. So when I walk into this lobby, the lady that's at the front desk, I see her. She's under the desk. I'm like, okay. And I look to my right to what would be the conference room that everybody was going to be in. I walk in. I'm like, hey, y'all, what's going on? Everybody, shh, shh, shh. I said, oh. So now, everything, the dots are starting to connect, right? I'm like, oh, wait a minute, something ain't right here. And then I look, and the person that would be the security guard that would have been sitting downstairs, he's in this room too, and he's crouched down on the floor. And I'm like, no. Because mind you, we do live in America now. They just had the shooting at the movie theater in Colorado. So I'm like, you know what? There is a mass shooter up in here about to spray everybody. And so I'm like, oh, I got to get up out of here. So I'm over here plotting and thinking, because they're like, get under the table with us. I'm like, hell no, I ain't about to get down in here with y'all and waiting to die. So I was like, okay, how do I get out of here? Like, and I'm talking to myself in my head. And all of this is happening in like 3 seconds, but it's like the longest 3 seconds where, I don't know, in moments of chaos, there's a million thoughts that run through your mind, and it all happens real quick because you're in like fight, flight, or freeze mode. And I was in all three. My body didn't know what to do. And I'm thinking like, okay, let me get out of here. Let me just run back to the elevator. No, don't run to the elevator, because if you go back in the elevator, it just may be your luck that when you push that button and the door opens, the shooter is right there waiting for you. Okay, F that. I'm taking my butt to the stairs because I can just run straight down and just run straight out the door. Like, most likely they're not in the stairs. Let me just get out of here. They're clearly in one of these rooms spraying somebody they got beef with. It ain't gonna be me. I'm getting up out of here. I don't make enough to be dying at this place. And so just as I'm getting ready to like hightail it out of there, because I'm looking all around, making sure the person is not in the building, the lights come on and they're like, thank you all for participating in our earthquake drill. What? Oh, I was too done. I said, why y'all didn't say nothing? Y'all got me in here running around thinking I'm about to fight for my life. I was real close to climbing inside one of them cabinets and just closing the door, because at one point in time, I was small enough to fit inside one, because I was just thinking of all the ways to survive. And so, y'all mean to tell me it's an earthquake drill? Nobody could tell me. And I was like, and why y'all had to be quiet? If it's an earthquake, shouldn't y'all be communicating on when it's time to get out if the buildings start falling apart or something? Y'all talking about shh. I was too done. An earthquake is loud. It ain't quiet, so what y'all quiet for? And then they all gonna bust out laughing. They thought that crap was funny, because I really was confused. And so the lady that's my representative for the county, Trina, she's over here dying like, Michael, you so crazy. I'm like, I'm not crazy. I walked into a building, all the lights was off. I got up here, y'all on the floor under the desk talking about be quiet. Like, I couldn't understand what was going on. And I was even looking at the security sideways, because I was like, even if this was an earthquake, what was you doing? Like, you weren't under anybody's table. You just crouched down. You weren't even in the door frame or anything. Now, they used to say back in the day, if you couldn't get under a table and hold on, at least stand in the door frame or the frame of the building, because you might have some, leverage, but they've kind of said don't really do that anymore. So I was like, you would just crouch down on the floor in all this open space. So if one of these projectors that was hooked to the ceiling would have fell and busted you in the head, you would have been done for. So I was too done. I was like, next time, y'all need to put some signs up in here saying, hey, we have an earthquake drill on this day or something. That was the most confusing mess. What a day. So that's how my morning started out. Now, speaking of meetings, it was finally time for this follow-up meeting with Boss Lady after my big blow-up that we talked about in the last episode. So I had this moment where I was over the nonsense and the foolery, and my tolerance level had hit its plateau. And I was just like, you know what? Let me tell you something. And it gets to the point where I even reference the fact that, yeah, I'm actually quitting this job anyway. Like, I'm done. I just can't find nowhere to go, but I'm ready to go. And so Boss Lady had ended that big giant conference meeting we had and was like, I'm going to schedule a separate meeting with just you and Ava. And so finally, it's time for this separate meeting with me and Ava. And it's been about a week since the big blow up. And I've kind of been on eggshells because I don't know if I'm getting fired or not. And at the same time, I'm like, I don't think I'm getting fired because nobody wants this job. They just don't, because it doesn't pay enough. I'm not at a center that has all the cool gadgets and the resources. Now, I love the kids. They're amazing. The families I work with are awesome. I love working with Ava and my team. But as far as the process and the nonsense that you have to deal with in this role, nobody wants it. Like, if anybody wants to be in charge of a center, they're going to go to a bigger one, because at least the bigger ones have additional resources and gyms and fields. I have none of that. Like, we just got the roaches out the stove. So I'm like, I don't think I'm getting fired. I don't know. We're going to see. And so Boss Lady comes to the center, and it's early in the morning. Now, I didn't know if I was getting fired, so I didn't bring no donuts this time. I was just like, I was over it, so I wasn't going to beef with the donut lady like I normally do. And so I'm just sitting there waiting. Boss Lady shows up to the meeting, and it's just the three of us, and we are sitting in the room. And Ava's a little nervous. I'm kind of numb, because I'm just like, okay, if you're going to fire me, go on and do it now so I can go on back home and, watch my shows. I'll figure out the rest of my life afterwards. And so Boss Lady's like, I was just so confused because I laid out the groundwork for why the board does what the board does, and one of my best staff is yelling at me. He's yelling at me. And I'm like, oh, so now I'm one of the best staff, huh? Okay, it ain't reflecting in my paycheck, but all right. And so, one of my best staff is yelling at me. So what I want you to do is, I want you to explain to me how you think all of this works. Tell me how your center operates. Tell me how the partnerships with the county operate. Tell me what the board does. And I'm sitting here like, are we really about to do one of these mind games where I say my 2 cents and then you try to shut it all down and make it look like I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about? All right, we can play this game. And so I started explaining everything that I understand. And like I said, the way that my center was set up was, it was in a 50-50 joint venture with the county, but more so it was kind of like a 30-30-30, because, you had the organization that paid for one portion. That was like our salaries, and that also provided the programming. And then the county also covered the overhead. So that's all of our bills. That's, the lights, everything like that. Because, we're backed by a whole bunch of grants. And then the third portion, the computer lab we have was managed by a contracting company out of the county. So like our computer lab was 100% managed by that contracting company. So if we needed like new printer ink, or if the kids were always tearing up the computers, they stayed busting up one of the screens or popping one of the speakers or something, you would call that company and they would come and fix everything. So I pretty much explain all of that, and I highlight the fact that the board is, we have multiple boards. You have the big metro board for all of the centers together, and then you have the regional boards, and the regional board directly works with us, and they help to raise money, blah, 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 blah. So I've explained all that. And so now, mind you, one thing Boss Lady used to always do, she chews with her mouth open. It would drive us crazy. I will never forget when we went to Myrtle Beach. I think I talked about it in one of the earlier episodes, and we were on that bus, and she had them carrot sticks, and the whole bus ride. And I mean, she was eating them dry too. Didn't even have no ranch or nothing, no hummus, just straight up carrots and celery. And we on a bus for 8 hours to Myrtle Beach. I'm like, oh my God. So now, I'm explaining all of the logistics surrounding the board. And so while I'm trying to explain why I was frustrated with the dismissive approach to the ideas about the board being a little bit more present and at least just showing up to the kids' championship soccer game, because, just show up for like 5 minutes, shake some hands, tell the kids they're doing a good job, and then y'all can go on back to your merry way, because it's kind of like in the same way that all of us on the staff level have to stop, drop, and roll anytime the board needs us to do something. The idea that there's over, 24 board members and not one can come for 4 or 5 minutes and just see what the kids are doing, and then the reasoning is they have other things to do or they're busy. Like, what? So I'm trying to explain that, and as I'm explaining, of course, boss lady pulls out them celery sticks and them carrot sticks. I'm like, here we go. So I'm trying to explain, and the reason I was frustrated is because for the kids, I'm getting annoyed, and I'm trying to really not let my energy and my emotion come back into what I'm saying, because a lot of times if I get really into my pocket, I talk very fast and I get louder and my voice just gets even higher pitched, and I'm trying to not go there and everything. So I'm really trying to bring this all down, and I'm just like, I think we need to understand that sometimes when you have a top level down, and so Ava's like, boss lady, maybe we pause with the snacks just so you can kind of understand where we're going, because Ava knew I was getting real annoyed, and so I'm explaining everything, and so while I start explaining, then boss lady gonna bust out laughing. Oh, you have it all wrong. You have it all wrong. At this point, I'm already plotting how much his bail gonna be, because, I was over it. So she's like, you have it all wrong. So the way that your center works, it's 30, 30, 30. Now, mind you, I just explained all of that. But of course, she didn't like the way I said, it's 30, 30, 30. It's the organization, it's the county, and it's the contracting company, which is what I just said. Now, mind you, I'm thinking you probably missed half of it because you was chewing so loud. And so she tries to re-explain all of this to me. And it doesn't make a difference between today and tomorrow, because at the end of the day, what does that have to do with you guys being dismissive to, the wants and the needs of the staff, and how we think we should start moving in regards to how things affect the actual kids? Because if we're in this business for the well-being of kids, can we at least pretend that we care about the kids and not our own self-interest? That was my energy. Anyway, with that being said, sometimes I think it takes a minute for people to realize what it is that they have, and sometimes they don't realize it until they're about to lose it. And that ain't about me losing a job. That was about them losing me if I decided to quit, which I wasn't going nowhere. I didn't have anything lined up yet. But I think for some reason, maybe there was a wake-up call after I had my big blow-up, and so boss lady follows up, because we've been in this meeting for like an hour. So after the celery sticks and the carrots and some back and forth, and we start coming to a middle ground here, and so she goes, the board and I had some very, very long discussions about our staff and how to keep our staff happy. And the board and I came to a mutual agreement that we are going to give you a raise of $5,000. And it was so funny because she said it like she was standing at my front door with the news cameras and she was with the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Like, she said it like she had just changed my life and that things were gonna just really align. Like, listen, I was grateful for the $5,000, but I started doing that math in my head. I was like, okay, let me see. Okay, $5,000. Okay, so $5,000, take off the rate of about 27% for taxes, plus the state taxes that are going to come out, and then you're going to take off your benefits in regard to dental, to eye care, even though you don't wear glasses, but just in case your eyes get bad, that needs to come out as well. You still need to take off health care, and then you need to take off Social Security. Okay, do that, do the math, and then of course your check is being written in DC, but it crosses the bridge to Virginia, so it's a reciprocity conversation with the tax code, so you're going to take off a little bit more from that, and then okay, you're going to do the math, you're going to divide, all right, get paid bi-weekly, divide that by 24. Okay, so that's going to be about $89 to $95 each paycheck every 2 weeks added on. Okay, all right. I guess I can buy a Beamer now. All right, we're in the money. We rolling in the dough. Okay, I am very rich. And so, it was cool. I was like, all right, I'll take it. It'll give me a little bit more leverage just to be somewhat happier while I figure out what's next in life. But, I was somewhat grateful for the $5,000. I wish it could have been a little bit more at the time because I was struggling, okay? I was struggling to make it to the end of the month. But, she swore that she had just fixed all the problems. So now that I got my little extra $5,000, all will be well. Hopefully he'll just shut up now and do his job. And mind you, she didn't even give nothing to Ava, and I'm like, okay, now we are a team, boss lady. You're gonna have to give everybody, because I don't need Ava to have an attitude with me because I got an extra $89, right? We were really in the trenches at one point in time. Like, man. Now, one thing about kids, they will always find a way to tear up something, okay? And one of the things that always happened at the center was something was always getting broken, like every day when we first started. I used to get annoyed because I'm like, dang, man, we can't have nothing nice. Y'all always tearing up everything. And so every time you turned around, something was falling or getting knocked over or broken. And I was annoyed because, remember in some of the earlier episodes, I talked about the lady next door from the rental office, Miss Linden. And she was like, this white woman with the southern accent, I just want to do so much for your center. I want to renovate. We need colors. We need all kind of things. And so this lady was so nice and gave us this beautiful renovation. I mean, and funded it all through the county and everything. We didn't even have to pay for anything. And so we got new floors, we got new lighting fixtures, we got bookshelves. There was this beautiful TV that was mounted on the walls. They painted all the rooms different colors. We had a Zen room just for the kids to go in and calm down. It was like this sea green color, and there was this big mural that looked like a bridge to prosperity. Like all kind of nice things in the center. Like it was just so nice. But every time you turn around, them kids was breaking something. Like you'd be walking and then you just hear a crash. What was that? And then they're like, it was Peewee. And if you remember, Peewee is the kid from the first episode of this specific series who was not even old enough to be in the center. He was only 3 and still wore a pull-up but knew how to cuss. I used to be like, the priorities are out of whack around here. I go in what's supposed to be our Zen room where it's supposed to be tranquil and peaceful. That's where the kids go to relax. It would eventually be our teen room, but this is supposed to be the room where people go to relax and calm down and, just let the vibes of the atmosphere dictate how the rest of your day is gonna go. Just letting the positive energy come in and help you to get into a calm and relaxed state of mind after a busy day at school. And so I go in this room, the whole light fixture somehow done fell out of the ceiling. And I'm like, Peewee, how did the light fall out of the ceiling? He gonna go, it's cheap. What'd you just say? It's cheap. And so what happened was he had something he threw and it hit the light fixture, and then the light fixture fell and cracked on the floor. And I was just like, you know what? LaShawn, come get your brother. It's time for Peewee to head on home. Because look, Peewee wasn't old enough to come to the center. Like I said, at this point he was 4, but he wasn't old enough to come yet. We would be nice sometimes because I didn't like turning kids away. Because it kind of does suck if you're 3 or 4 years old and you see all the kids in the neighborhood coming to one spot and you can't go. And so sometimes if they had an older sibling that would kind of keep an eye on them at the same time, I would give some grace to some kids, and Peewee just always found his way up in there anyway. So I'm just like, you know what, yeah, it's time for Peewee to head on home. All right, you might want to change his pull-up too while you at it. No, I'm just kidding. He wasn't wearing a pull-up by the time he was 4. It was done. But Ava and I used to have this pact. We used to be like, listen, when Peewee is old enough for kindergarten, we need to make sure we're out of here because there's no way. And it was so funny because we really used to abide by that. And then Peewee was old enough and we were still there. And then Peewee has a younger brother who was even more off the chain, and we used to be like, listen, when he gets old enough to come, let's really make sure we're not here. Fast forward, he was old enough to come, we were still there. And then they got a little sister. She was adorable, just cute when she was born. Listen, we really need to make sure we out of here by the time she's old enough. She was there, we were still there. Like, man, but no, they used to tear up everything. And when it came to the video games, those used to stay getting broken. And at the time, we had 3 game consoles. So we had a PlayStation 2, I know, don't judge, but this was back in the day, so it was time appropriate. So there was a PlayStation 2, there was a Nintendo Wii, and there was an Xbox, I think an Xbox 360. So there was this one day, and it was a nice, easy day. Like, the kids had been really, really great that day. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna let us do video games today, because normally I didn't let the kids do video games till Fridays, because I'm like, y'all not about to just be video game zombies and that's all y'all gonna do every day. We are going to do all kind of different activities so you can get a full experience of your childhood, because time goes by fast and you want to have memories. If all your memories were just sitting in front of a game all day, what childhood did you really have? And so, I was like, I'm gonna be nice today. I'm gonna let them just play some, it's like a Wednesday or Thursday. Y'all can play the video games today. So, they're playing the games and there's all kind of stuff going on. we're in the big room. So the video game console is in the big room on that nice TV that's mounted on the wall. Some kids are playing the big giant jumbo Uno. Some kids are playing Jenga. Some kids are coloring. It's a nice day. The kids were playing some game. I don't even remember what it was, but it was on the PlayStation 2. So there were these two kids, Micah and Pedro. They were best friends. When I tell you, these two were inseparable. So they were both in 3rd grade, and I mean, they did everything together. If they weren't playing the video games together, they were playing foosball together. If we did any kind of game, they had to be on the same team, or it was going to be an issue because they was going to feel some kind of way. Like, they were inseparable. So the two of them are playing on the PlayStation 2, and whatever game it is, I don't know what happened. All I know is Pedro won. And Pedro was so happy that he won this round. And it's funny because when you talk about video games, when kids are losing, sometimes you would think that somebody killed their puppy because they just start losing it. It's so funny. If you remember from the first episode of this season, I talk about when I first get to the center, I meet this lady, Miss Glenda, and she has the baby Cedric. So fast forward some years, when Cedric was finally old enough to come to the center, Cedric would have a meltdown every time he lost on the game. It was to the point where I was like, listen, you're gonna have to play with some Legos or something because you're doing too much, because he would be playing the game and be crying while he's losing. I'm like, Cedric, like, bruh, it's gonna be okay. The best thing about a video game is it's not real. If you lose, you can still play again when it's your turn. No. I'm like, man. But anyway, so Pedro was so happy he won this game. And so he jumps up, does this like super high jump, and like tries to spin around and throw his hand like a yes and everything. And so here's the problem. He's holding the controller. And this is a controller that is hooked with a cord to the unit. Okay, this is before the wireless game controllers, or actually I think they were out, but it was not in our budget. So everything we had was still hooked to a cord. And so he jumps up and does this spin and does yes! And I just watched the controller yank the whole unit right off of the desk, right onto the floor. Boom! You just hear it hit the ground, and I can just hear the expenses spreading all across the floor. I'm like, dang it, this is just like that robot they knocked over at that event again. And I couldn't yell because the kid was so happy, so I understood why he did what he did. But I was, Pedro, let's take a break from the game, okay? Okay? For your own safety and my patience, let's just take a break from the game. Everybody, let's just go outside for like 10 minutes. Everyone, let's just go outside. Oh, man, they used to tear up some stuff. Those video game sessions used to be so intense, and to be fair, I was kind of the same way when I was really little. Like, I still have some PTSD from Mario on Nintendo. Like, man, it's one thing to lose, but for some reason, and I'm talking about like throwback Mario in the old Nintendo that had the lid that you had to lift up, and then you put the game in, and then push it down, and close the lid, and start the game, like that Mario. Something about when you lost just used to set you off. Like, it wasn't even about the losing. I really think it was the music, because they had to make it so dramatic. Like, you already lost the game, and then as you lose, you remember Mario would just freeze and then just drop off the screen, and they'd have that music that would dum 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 dum, like that part right there. That was trick. And then if you had lost all your lives and could not even start back from the checkpoint where you left off, because now you've actually lost the whole game, and that big thing on the screen flashes and says game over, and they put the even more dramatic music on. Dum 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 da 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 da. I used to be like, you know what? Because again, something about that music was just so triggering because it was so dramatic. It was kind of like code for, you just suck at life because you can't even beat this simple game. And as a matter of fact, you will never know prosperity. You're gonna be allergic to pizza, and you're gonna start balding by the time you're 12. Like, that's what the music meant. And so I'd be in my room just having a whole meltdown. I'd be knocking stuff off the dresser, and then my mom started yelling, "What are you doing in there? Turn it off!" So I get it. I understand why the kids used to be like super intense about the game. It really was something that would kind of just rumble and rattle your brain if it didn't go your way. I mean, these kids used to tear up everything. Even the water fountain had to fight for its life. So, you know, we had this water fountain that had the big button that says push on the front. Like, you push it and then the water pops out. And so anytime we did anything outside, especially if it was hot and it was time to come inside, you know, the kids would all run straight through the door and everybody would run to the fountain. They'd all try to get to the fountain first. And so they'd all push right into the fountain. Boom, push, push. So eventually, like, the water fountain started to crack and the water would be dripping from the bottom. So we had to put a bucket under the water fountain, and eventually we got a new one, but it took years. I had to beg the county, like, please, can't we get a new fountain? The children are thirsty. And of course, you know, we had to dump that bucket every day, because if we didn't, of course the water would spill over and then the carpet would mold. But you know what was crazy? Even the trees were not exempt from the nonsense, okay? Even the trees at this center were in danger. Just destructive. There was this tree right in front of the window by the entrance at the center. So when you came to the center, you know, there's the front door, and to the right is a window, and to the left is a window. And so in front of the right window was this tree that might have been, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years old. And so the thing about that tree was, you know, the branches were up really high. So the kids could never get to the branches because the tree just, it was a little bit too tall as far as the branches. So that tree was fine for a few years. It was somewhat left alone. But that tree to the left, this was like a baby tree that was on the way that had just been recently planted maybe 2 or 3 years earlier. So, you know, it was still growing. It had some height, and the tree had about 4 or 5 stems that came out of the ground, but the stems were not very thick, okay? They were about as thick as a roll of paper towels, but not the good ones. You know, it wasn't like no Bounty would, you know, Bounty be giving you some layers of a paper towel. It'd take you all month to get through that. No, this is like the cheap ones you get off the discount aisle. So it's like you use that entire roll in like 4 hours, like all of it be going. So it was kind of very narrow, so it couldn't really support a lot of weight. And the kids were always climbing in the tree and trying to hang off the branches, and so branches were always getting broke off the tree. Every 3 months you'd come and a whole stem would be missing. Like I said, it was like 4 or 5 stems that were sprouting out the ground, and after about a year there was about 2 stems left of this tree, you know, that was holding up everything else. And so this tree had been fighting for its life. But like I said, you pull up, you see half the tree in the street. I'm like, what? Stop climbing on this tree. Leave the tree alone. And listen, I'm a tree hugger. I love Mother Nature. It hurts my heart to see plants have to suffer. And so they used to stay tearing up this tree, and it got to the point where eventually the county just came and chopped the rest of the tree down because there was nothing left. Like it got down to 1 stem, and the leaves were dying. It was brown. The birds didn't even go to the tree no more. Like I was like, even the squirrels used to walk right past it. Like, nah, not that one. We're gonna go to another one. They used to treat that tree like it was the monkey bars. Even when it got down to that last stem, I mean, it would have that one stem that went up and branched out and kind of bent over, and they would jump up and hold on to that part and just swing. And I mean, that tree was fighting the fight. It was really trying to hold on. And like I said, the county came and chopped it down. And I was so pissed because that tree was our shade if we ever wanted to sit at the bench in front of the center. So then fast forward some years, there will be some days where we would do homework outside. So we'd get the folding tables and set them up outside in front of the center, because sometimes it was a really nice day. You didn't always want to be inside. The sun was out, the weather was pretty decent and everything, so it was really great sometimes to just sit outside. And it was wonderful because the tree gave us shade. But now that the tree was gone, we'd be out there sweating because one day the AC went out in the building, and so it was like, man, well, we're better off just sitting outside in the heat because all of us stuffed inside this building with poor ventilation. It's burning up in there, it's humid. So one day we had the tables outside, all the kids, Mr. Michael, we're hot! We're hot! And I'm like, well, you know, if you didn't kill the tree a few years ago, we would have had some good shade by now because the tree would have continued to grow. We could have had a whole canopy we would have been sitting up under, but no, y'all wanted to be Dominique Dawes and Gabby Douglas and swing off the tree. So now we ain't got no shade. So you know what? Sit here and reminisce about what could have been. Hope you have all learned your lesson, so everybody out there sweating. Even the chairs weren't safe at the club, okay? Everything was fair game with these kids. They was gonna find a way to tear up everything. Now, if you remember, in one of the earlier episodes, I said there was a kid, Donnie. Donnie was one of my favorite kids at the club. Now, we're not supposed to have favorites, and I would never announce it to everybody that Donnie was one of my favorites, but people just kind of knew. Donnie could do no wrong in my book, and at this point, Donnie was in 1st grade. And still, one of my favorites, just good energy, comes from a nice family, you know, dad is involved, mom is involved, the kids are respectful, they know how to share. If they lose a game, they're not about to fight, it won't be the end of the world. They understand that there's another round coming down the line. You know, Donnie's gonna be the snack helper. Donnie, good grades, I don't have to fuss at him about homework. Like, Donnie was just that kid for me. I was like, man, if I had a son, I would want him to be like Donnie. And so one day Donnie didn't feel good. Like, he went to school. I don't know what they served them kids. It must have been some hot dogs or something, but probably like some boiled hot dogs. You know, the ones that they boil on the stove and they got all that water and stuff. And oof, God, he must have had something like that. I don't know. And so he didn't feel good. And I was like, okay, well, do you want to go lay down in the Zen room for a little bit? He's like, yeah, I want to just go in there and lay down. I was like, okay, yeah, you go in there and lay down. I'll check on you in a little bit. All right. And so we're doing the homework and stuff, and we're getting ready to do snacks. So I'm like, let me go see if Donnie's a little bit better, because sometimes kids just need a nap. They be all right. And so I go in there. Poor Donnie. Donnie done threw up like 5 times in that room. And I felt so bad because when I opened the door to check in on him, like, he was trying to clean it all up. Like, he didn't want to disappoint me, and he felt bad that he threw up in all the spots because he tried to make it to the bathroom. He just couldn't move fast enough because his body was like, oh no, this stuff is coming out right now. So he had threw up right in one of the wicker chairs that we had. Like, there was this wicker chair that Miss Linden had bought when she had done the renovation, and it had this big cushion in it that I guess he had been sitting on. So he threw up right on top of the cushion, and then he threw up on the carpet, and then he threw up by the window, and then he threw up by the door, and then he threw up by the lights, which I'm like, God dang, what did you eat? And so I felt so bad because he was like, I don't feel good. And, you know, I'm like, oh, poor kid. So I'm like, all right. And I didn't even know what to do because he was trying to clean it up with his hands. Like, his hands have all this vomit on it, right? It's on his shirt. I'm not going to tell you what the room smelled like, but just know I went straight to the window to crack it because I was like, I need air because now you about to have me throw up too. We're going to be in here throwing up together. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, what do I do? And before I can even process, kids are already inquisitive. And here comes Tiff. If you remember, Tiff is the girl that is very inquisitive. She is in everybody's business. She's a 4th grade girl. She has 4 other siblings, but she loves to be in the mix of everything and be the first one to share with everybody what it is she saw. So she walks past the door because she was coming to ask me for something. I don't know what it was, but she's, Mr. Ow! Oh my God! Everyone! Donnie threw up in the zen room! He threw up! It's everywhere! And so here come all the other kids running to come and see. It just makes the situation worse because now Donnie's embarrassed. He's crying, and I hate to see some kids cry. It just breaks my heart, especially like Donnie. I didn't like to see him cry because if he was not a crier. So if you saw him cry, that meant he was really, really hurt. One of the reasons I always thought he was such a cool kid was because he was tough. Like, he was one of the smaller ones, but when we would do any outdoor sports, like if we did flag football or something and he got knocked into the fence, he would just get up and keep running. Like, I mean, bust his lip and just keep playing. So to see him cry, it broke my heart. And I'm looking like, Tiff, get out of here and go back to the other room. The kids used to be so dramatic if they saw something awkward. Like, the worst thing would be like if a kid went and did number 2 in the bathroom and didn't flush the toilet. Somebody would always be like, oh my God, somebody pooped in the bathroom. And then all the kids would run to the bathroom and go look. And they'd be like, ow! And then they look again. Ah! I'm like, oh, move, go. Like, they just always found things to do. And so I'm like, let me go flush this. Like, and I'm like, God, what did this child eat? My God, ooh, Lord. But man, so I was trying to figure out how to help Donnie clean himself up. So it was like, I had to go get like a hot rag so he could like wipe his hands, and the shirt he had on we had to just throw away. I gave him one of the shirts that we have at the center for when the kids go on field trips and everything like that. And fortunately, like, there was like another pair of pants and stuff that we had in the lost and found. I was like, here, just put that on. And I had to just throw that cushion away from the wicker chair. I was in there, like the carpet, we had to let that carpet go because there ain't enough shampoo in the world. So I was in there just cleaning that room. It was like Area 51 up in there. I was like, dang, man. Ooh. And so yeah, that room, we lost a chair cushion. They just had to sit on the wicker. But man, yeah, that was a day. Now, speaking of carpets, we had this really big red carpet that took up 1/2 of the main room, and we had split the main room into 2 sections. So there's the main section with all the big tables and the TV on the wall and the video games and all that stuff where the kids would do a lot of the big activities. And then the second half of the room we called like the reading zone or the quiet zone. And so it was separated by these big black bookshelves that I had built. And so you had the big bookshelves that split the room, and then the carpet was on the other side, and there was like a couch over there, some beanbag chairs, and a lot of times we would take the little kids over to that side to do their homework and stuff like that. And at the time, I had been working with Otis. If you remember, Otis is the kid from the previous episode that had a crush on Clarissa, and Clarissa punched him in the stomach. Like, that was that kid. But at the time, we weren't sure if Otis was dyslexic, so I used to spend a lot of time with Otis in the corner in the reading room trying to just kind of practice with him and work with him on his words and everything because he was having a really hard time reading. But there was a girl named Toy who just decided that that entire section was going to be her classroom. She loved the idea of being a teacher. She was obsessed with it. And she was actually the older sister of the kid Roland, who I talked about in the previous episode. Roland was the kid who was in kindergarten, and he had just moved here from Ghana. And so when he got here, he could speak no English, not a single word other than maybe thank you and say his name. And so it was so interesting because he picked up English so quickly. He learned it from just playing with the other kids and going to school every day and paying attention to what was on TV and the radio. And before the end of the school year, he fluently spoke English. Like, it was just amazing how quick he picked it up. And so she was actually, you know, his older sister. So she was in 3rd or 4th grade. I want to say maybe 4th. And so she loved the idea of being a teacher. So that was her school over there. And what she would do is she would gather gather all the kindergarten, first and second grade girls, and they would be her students. And I mean, she took this thing serious. She would save her little lunch money, and her mom would let her go to the dollar store, and she'd come back with coloring books and crayons and pencils, and she would pass out these packets to the little girls. They'd all be sitting on the floor like crisscross applesauce in the classroom, because there was a whiteboard on there as well. And I mean, this was really her school, and we used to just let her do it because I was like, oh, listen, it'll make our job easier. She has them little ones all attentive. That'll make life great. And I mean, she went hard with this school. This went on for like 3 years. I mean, they were taking naps. She had her own snack time. You know, she'd bring some Takis from the dollar store and put them in a napkin and pass them around. It got to the point where some of the other kids would be jealous because they weren't in her class. Really, they just wanted the Takis. They wanted her snack. But I'd be like, oh, Toy, do you want to let some new kids in your class? No, Mr. Michael. I only work with second grade and down. Second grade and down, Mr. Michael. That's my class. Those are my students. Okay. All right. And I mean, she played no games with this school. I mean, kids was getting suspended out of her school. I remember one time, this one girl came to me boo-hooing. I'm like, what's the problem? She suspended me. What? She suspended me. What? She's suspended. Oh, suspended. Oh, you got suspended from the school. Oh, okay. Well, why don't you come to this school that we have over here with everybody else? No. Okay. And then I'm like, Toy, Coretta said you kicked her out of the school. How many days is she suspended for? Mr. Michael, I don't deal with disrespect. I don't deal with disrespect. She was not listening. She didn't want to follow directions, so I sent her away. She can return next week. I'm like, dang, this girl is playing no games. Like, she played no games with this school. And so I let her have it. I'm like, okay, well, Coretta, she said you can come back next week. I'm like, we don't have to cry. It's okay. So just do better when you go back to the classroom. I mean, they were taking naps. That school was a little lit. So it's so funny. Now, Toy is now, I think she's about 19 or 20. And so every time I see her, I always remind her of like, yeah, you remember when you used to have the school with the kids? So funny. Now, around this time, the attendance at the center was really starting to climb. Like, a lot of kids were starting to come and stay more often. And so, as opposed to when I first got there and we'd have maybe 30, 35 kids a day, now it's like 55 every day. Some days, if it was a really good day, like a Friday, and there was a lot going on, you might have 60 plus kids in there. And like I said, this center is just a converted 3-bedroom apartment. It's not even a full-size center. It's not that big. And so, we literally would be in there shoulder to shoulder sometimes. So, Boss Lady was like, you know, I believe it's time for you to have an additional staff member. I'm like, thank you, God, finally. And so we ended up getting Mr. Craig. Mr. Craig, can I just say, was one of my favorite people to work with. Mr. Craig was this older black man that was no nonsense. He was about, I want to say, his mid-50s. He used to play basketball on the college level way back when, and he had a son that was about 17. And so he was just throwback, old school, cracked me up, because it was like, first of all, I remember the only concern I had at first when we were doing the interview was I had to ask him, like, are you comfortable, you know, having a boss that's like 24? You know, are you good with that? He's like, yeah, I'm fine with that as long as the job get done. Oh, okay, well, look, he and I are going to be good. And so when Mr. Craig got there, the way that the energy at the center started to shift, it would just be so funny because there was such a great chemistry between Ava, Mr. Craig, and I. Like, we just meshed well. It was a good balance of all the different energies, because one of the things that Ava and I had always thought was we always felt like the kids never really looked at us as full adults. They looked at us like big older cousins because we were still really young. At the time, I was like 23, 24. Ava was about 22, 23. And so having Mr. Craig there, who's in his mid-50s, automatically, it felt like there's a real adult in the room now, right? And so the energy was just right. And then, of course, we still had the volunteer Lisa that was there. And so when the 4 of us got there, we used to just cut up. The volunteer Charity had kind of transitioned out at this point. This was the volunteer that dislocated her knee on day 1 trying to teach dance. And then Carrie, who had left a while back, she would still come and volunteer and pop in. So there were a lot of, you know, faces that were coming in and out, but consistency was there. That's what I loved. And the thing about Mr. Craig is he used to say stuff that would be so out of pocket sometimes because he just had no filter. Like, he really was like Bernie Mac. It would be so funny because every now and then you'd have a parent show up and try to do the most, and it got to the point where he loved to interact with the parents. So he'd be like, I got it, Mr. Michael. And I'm like, oh God, please don't say nothing that's gonna get us to a point where I gotta talk to HR because a parent got a complaint. Like, he used to crack me up because he had no filter. I remember this one time, there was this group of teenagers that was coming to fight one of my teenage boys. And so before I could even get out there, Mr. Craig was already outside. He was, who y'all supposed to be? I was like, oh Lord, this is not the language we want to use right now. Because, you know, teenagers of the modern era don't care. They'll swing on an adult like it's nothing. You know, who y'all supposed to be? And the guy was like, no, we out here because we've been disrespected. And so he was like, oh, so y'all just out here fighting for free? And they looked at him like, what? And he's like, yeah, y'all out here just throwing punches for free. If you gonna do that, at least get paid to do it in the boxing ring. What's disrespectful is y'all coming to people with that bullshit. I was like, oh God, oh Lord. But actually, I was enjoying it. So he done chewed these teenagers out. The way all of them just went ahead and left, and there was no fight that day, I was like, actually, you know what? This might work, okay. But no, it was really funny. And I remember one time, we had this big giant game of flag football at the park with like all the kids in the club. Even the teenagers were involved. I don't know why we thought this was a good idea, because you got like 7-year-olds playing with 16-year-olds. But we had this big old game of flag football. Everybody was playing. I was playing. Even Ava was playing. Like I said before, she's very athletic. Like, the kids sometimes used to get mad if she played some games because she would wail on the kids. Like, if it was dodgeball, they knew to get out the way because she had a strong arm. Like, even I got hit with the ball from her one time. I'm like, dang. What you doing? Fast pitch? Lord, God. But like, man, they used to hate when she played. But anyway, we're doing flag football. I'm over here reliving my 8th and 9th grade year when I played. And so I remember Mr. Cricket threw a long one. It was coming to me, right? And so I'm jumping up because I'm like, oh, here we go. Because I know as soon as I catch this, none of these kids are faster than me. I may not be the most athletic person, but when it came to track and field, I got down and dirty. So I knew once I had the ball, nobody's catching me. My team is about to win. And so I'm running. I jump up. Boom! I have caught the ball, right? I'm coming down. And little JJ, who at this point is now in 1st grade, he's trying to like celebrate because he knows that I caught the ball and he knows Mr. Michael's about to score a touchdown. And so as I'm coming down, he jumps up to celebrate. My elbow goes boom right into his teeth. I look, little JJ's on the ground. I'm like, oh God, I hope I didn't kill him. Oh God, oh God. And I knew it was bad because like my elbow was bleeding. I'm like, his tooth like went into my elbow. And so he gets up. And he's like, I lost a tooth. I was like, oh, God, how? Okay, this can go many different ways. And I was like, yeah, man, you lost a tooth. You know what that means? You're going to get something from the tooth fairy. Come on, let's go inside and put it in a paper towel. Like, I was trying to stop him from crying because I thought he was going to start wailing and screaming. Fortunately, the tooth was already loose. And so he had been waiting for this tooth to come out. And so when he jumped and my elbow hit the tooth, it just finished the job. And fortunately, the tooth did not go down his throat. Instead, it was stuck in my elbow. And so, man, I rushed him to that center. Look, I got him that cup with the salt water to gargle it. And I gassed this up so much, like, man, the tooth fairy is going to give you the best present ever. Because I'm like, oh, God. Because his mom already had beef with me with some other stuff that she didn't like that I did before. So I was like, I cannot go back to this kid's mama with something else that I done did wrong. So nope, man. So we played that off so smooth. I even gave him an extra $5. I was like, did you know that there's a club tooth fairy too? Did you know there's a club tooth fairy? Like, I put a little $5 in his backpack. Like, you might want to check your stuff. He might have given you something too. Like, I was trying to do everything. And fortunately, it didn't amount to much. But I was like, all right, I'm not playing this game no more because I'm over here killing the kids. Now, one of the things that did suck was around this time I started to notice that the money was real funny in the company. Right? Like I said, we were a company with a bunch of centers all around the DMV. And, you know, I had my center, but there were other centers in Virginia. There were other centers in DC. There were other centers in Maryland. And so I started to notice that things seemed a little off around the time I went to the Staff Fun Day of 2012. Now, I remember Staff Fun Day of 2011 because I had just started working at the center. I was fresh-faced, brand new, hadn't even been there a month. And so that Staff Fun Day was at Dave & Buster's. And I mean, they went out and did the works for this event. I mean, it was unlimited food, unlimited game tokens. If you've been to Dave & Buster's, you know them tokens be costing money to play them games. But you could play as many games as you wanted. I mean, they were giving out bonuses and awards. I was like, ooh, bonuses. I need to make sure I do good at this job. This is going to be the place for me. And then even the company Christmas party of 2011, again, they made it this big giant extravaganza, right? It was at the Ritz-Carlton in Tyson's Corner. It was black tie. I mean, they were giving out steaks and lobster. It was an open bar. You had champagne, wine, tequila, all kind of stuff. They had a DJ. You know, they had a karaoke stand. They had a photo booth. They were giving out prizes. I won a camera. I even brought Whitney as my plus one. You know, she had her red dress on. I had my black on. We were looking good and fly and sexy and sophisticated. I was like, this place is lit. So then when we fast forward to the next school year, I noticed Staff Fun Day of 2012 was a little different. We weren't at nobody's Dave and Buster's. They said we're going to do it at one of the centers. So we all had to drive all the way to one of the centers out there in Virginia, way out in Woodbridge. And so we went to the center and they did the entire staff fun day there. There was no Dave and Buster's. There was no all-you-can-eat food. It was more so, okay, they took the grill out, make some hot dogs, some hamburgers, and Big Boss Man, the one that I said at the time, I wasn't sure if he liked me or not. I used to be a little nervous because he seemed to not be impressed with anything I was doing at the time. You know, he was frying up some fish. And so that was the staff fun day. It wasn't all the big elaborate games and everything. I said, this is real laid back. Okay, maybe we're just, you know, pinching a little pennies because, you know, they're going to save it for the company Christmas party because I don't know how they're going to top last year's. So then we get to the company Christmas party and, oh no, this is not going to be at a Ritz-Carlton. There will not be open bar and steaks and shrimp and cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Ain't none of that. Okay, again, this was held at another center, one of the centers in D.C., and they got them fold-up tables with the tablecloths that you can get from Party City, and they got a DJ in there. Now, the DJ was actually one of the staff members from another site because he DJ'd, and I said, ooh, they cutting corners around here. Look, wasn't no bonuses being given out. They ain't had no prizes. They just had the DJ. You dance. You eat some of the food that was there, and you can get some of the finger foods. Get a meatball on a toothpick, and you know, Merry Christmas. And I was flabbergasted because I was like, I know we ain't down this bad. That little extra $89 in my paycheck can't be doing this much damage. So something must be going on up in here. So later on in the school year, we get this email, and the email's like, change is coming to the company. And so I'm thinking it's like something good, like, okay, I don't know, maybe we're all getting new company cards because I still don't have one. If you recall, we never had a company card at this point. Boss lady used to give us a gift card to Costco for $150 about once a month, and that was supposed to be supplies, snack, and whatever we needed. Now understand, it's easy to burn through $150, so I just knew, oh, finally I'm getting a company card and all kind of different things. You know, I just thought it was gonna be something good. And oh no, it's like, okay, you start reading email, they start talking about the hardship the company's been dealing with and still recovering from the damage of the recession and so on and so forth. And then I start seeing them big numbers, and it's like, oh, you know, $1.8 million in debt, and we're projected to lose another, you know, however many $100,000 in the next academic year, and we just have to make some really, really hard choices. And I'm like, oh Lord, I'm about to be fired. They laying me off. I'm already plotting like, I'm about to be headed back to Spanaway. Let me just go ahead and live a simple life. Let me just move on back home near my parents, and, you know, I'll just go ahead and get married and have a nice quiet life out there, because clearly this just ain't meant to be. You know, I just live by the deer, amongst the deer and the moose. That's fine. And so I start reading the email, and they're like, you know, we had to make some really tough choices, and so we've decided to close the following centers. And I'm looking, making sure mine ain't on there, because I just knew we were going to be the first to be cut, because again, we're one of the smaller ones, and we're not really a cash crop club. We don't have the major sports leagues that are bringing in, you know, tens and thousands of dollars every month. That cute little soccer league we had, that was something that was kind of self-funded and didn't really bring in any money. And other than that, because we don't have a gym or additional space, we can't even make money from rentals because there's nothing to rent. And so I just knew we were on the chopping block. I was like, let me go ahead and text Ava and Craig and tell them they ain't even got to worry about coming in today. And so as I look, I'm like, oh, we're not on here. Oh, okay, we're still here. But the Herndon location was set to close. Now that was Mr. John's club. Now remember, Mr. John is the staff member that works in the region, and he's the one whose daddy worked for NASA back in the day. And so Mr. John is the one who, in my opinion, you know, he was cool, but he ain't ever really do no work like that. So I was like, dang, I kind of felt bad, like, dang, they done took Mr. John's club. And so it was crazy. The next day we had this big giant meeting at headquarters. It was kind of like a town hall, and the CEO was there explaining things. There's people that are crying because, listen, some of these centers have been there for years. And so, you know, there were like a handful of centers that they were closing. There were some centers, especially some of the ones in DC, that were going to be sold back to the city, and we would no longer own the buildings, but we would still operate the programming. And then there was one center that was way out in Virginia, and they were like, listen, because of how far you are, what we want you to do instead is you're just going to disassociate from our entire company, and you can keep the name under your own affiliate, but yeah, we're no longer going to work with you either. I'm like, dang. So it was real vicious. And so, I mean, it was a rough day. And so after that meeting, then we had a meeting with our boss lady, and so she was talking about how things were going to go from this point on, because I just figured, all right, well, Mr. John's out of here. And, you know, I felt bad because I'm like, what happens to the kids at the Herndon location? Like, what do they get? And so it is decided that, you know, they're going to create a regional position for Mr. John. Again, this is how privilege be working, because like I said, John ain't ever do no work. But boss lady, I will give her credit to this. She, at one point, used to make sure you were taken care of in the company sometimes. And so John was one of her very, very first employees ever. Back in the day when there wasn't the 3 clubs in our region, which would have been the Basement Club, My Center, and Herndon, there used to just be the Basement location. And so John had actually worked at the Basement location with Boss Lady. And so that was way back in like 1993. And so she was going to make sure he was good. So she pretty much had a grant already on deck, ready for this moment. And that grant would fund his salary. And pretty much he had got a new position that was created, and it was going to be like an educational director position. I said, Boss Lady ain't playing on this one. Okay, I hope in the event that this happens again and it's me on the chopping block, I hope I get the same treatment. But the main part that kind of turned me a little off was like, she was like, and so what we're gonna do, because he no longer has a center, Michael, he'll be coming to your center twice a week. Huh? He's gonna be coming to mine? Are you sure? Okay. Now, here's the thing. I had no beef with John, but the problem was when John came into my center, he just messed up the flow of everything. Like, he was cool, but, you know, we already had a well-oiled machine in my center. You know, me, Ava, Mr. Craig, plus Lisa, and the teenagers and the families and the kids. Everything was smooth over there. It was smooth sailing, and every time he came, it was kind of like you had to move different, because John, you couldn't really trust, because he was messy. He was cool, but he was messy. Like, I remember one time, he had been keeping tabs on everybody in the organization. He had a notebook to keep notes of what people were doing that he considered to be, you know, flagged behavior. And I remember he got Don in trouble this one time, because Don could not stand Boss Lady, and Don used to actually work for John at one point. Don used to work at the Herndon location. John went on vacation one time. Don begged to come and work at the Basement location while John was out, and then she just never returned to her center. And so they already had smoke for each other. But one time, I just remember we were having some meeting, and Don was pissed about something in regards to her having to work with John, and he just blew up at her. She blew up at him. Next thing you know, he pulls out a notebook. In this notebook are printed out shots of some tweets that Don had written about Boss Lady. I said, what the wait a minute. And Don went in on Boss Lady. I mean, he read all them tweets out loud. I was like, oh. Woo, remind me to never piss him off. But after that, I just always had my guard up with him, because I'm like, nope, because also at this time, now again, if you know, you follow me from YouTube, some of you follow me on YouTube, some of you just have found this podcast, but this is around the time I'm slowly getting a tiny bit of traction on the internet with the YouTube content. My channel's not big or anything like that. It only had 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers at the time. But, you know, I did have a few videos that were starting to gain some traction, and I had no idea if he even knew I had a channel. And I know that on the channel we talked a lot of politics and race and different things, and I'm like, I don't have time for him to go and find my stuff and be trying to weaponize it against me too. And so I just always moved different when he came to the center. And even when he came, like, it would just be so weird. Like, I remember one time we were having a serious discussion about colorism with the teenagers, because again, there was just a lot of issues going on culturally, and, you know, again, having so many kids from different realms of the diaspora. You know, you have Black American kids, you got kids from the Caribbean, kids from West Africa, some kids from East Africa, you got kids who are Afro-Latino. Like, colorism and all that kind of stuff is a serious conversation, and so we're having a great discussion. You know, they're talking about standards of beauty. It's a really great discussion, and, you know, I was sharing my experience of what it was like growing up on the West Coast and growing up in an area where, you know, you had a lot of families who were biracial, where, you know, students were Black and Korean, or Black and Samoan, or white and Mexican, all kind of stuff. And we're just having these really great discussions about just culturally how, you know, the world just operates in the way that it operates. And when we got into the conversation of like the colorism and how some people were insecure about the shade of brown they were and so on and so forth, he decides to interrupt the conversation and make it all about himself and how he sees the world through his lens. And he's like, well, I'm just human. And I'm kind of like, well, one, don't come in here trying to erase the experience of what these kids are sharing in regards to their reality when it comes to moving around in a society when you're a shade of brown. Like, even if that's not your experience, you don't get the luxury to come in here with an authoritative disposition and dismiss everybody's claim to what it is that they're dealing with because you don't see it as a part of your experience. Like, I used to light him up sometimes, but I was like, oh no. So it's just like he used to come and just mess up the energy. Every time he came, we all had to just move different because we didn't know if he was taking notes, and it's not like we were doing anything out of pocket, but it was just like, you got another vendetta around here. He already don't want to be there like that. You know, he had his own center. He don't want to come and work at mine, but he needs a job. So I was just like, I just always kept it real light and bright with him. Like, we were cordial. He would do stuff, but like, we did all the real fun stuff on the days he wasn't there. Cause I was like, if you dare think you about to have a notebook on my behind about anything I do or say, we gonna have a problem for real. Like, man. And it was just crazier too, because like I said, he never did any work. If we went outside to do an activity, he was never going outside. He talked about, oh, I can't be in the sun. I'm like, well, what are you? Mind you, he was claiming he was Native American. I was like, okay, but you Cherokee, but you can't be outside. All right, cool. And so, and by the way, I'm not going to say my 2 cents on whether I think he was Cherokee or not. Just, I've read the stories in the back line on the blood quantum laws. That's all I'll say. And so, yeah, like, he just never did any work. He didn't really interact with the kids. He just was to himself. He was just kind of a body in the room. And again, I actually, somewhat to an extent, liked him as a person. I just couldn't stand working with him because he wasn't going to do nothing. And then if you did try to correct him, he got an attitude. He wanted to go straight to HR and stuff. I used to be like, man, you lucky I'm mature, because I swear if I had to meet you outside, like, and him and Mr. Craig did not mesh at all. Like, it's just like, man, you just want to talk about the privilege of just being coddled. I was like, this dude here, like, he was a character. And then it didn't help the kids were not crazy over him. And I used to try and, you know, bring everyone together, and we used to try to make group activities, and I try to include him as much as I could, and he would still purposely just be awkward and difficult and distant. I'm like, no wonder they closed your center. I don't even know what them kids used to go through at your site. Like, God, just dry. And I can't remember if I shared it in any of the earlier episodes, but before I got to my center, like when the old director left, there was a time period of about 4 or 5 months where there was nobody there to fill in. John was the fill-in, but it did not go very well. Like, he and the kids just did not mesh. He called the police on the kids like every other day. So the police were always coming to the center because he and the teenagers just did not mesh well. One of the teenagers put a potato in his exhaust pipe on the car. Like, so there was just kind of a history of not great energy. That's why I was like, well, why'd you bring him here? You know, now I will say over time, things got a little better. We just learned how to understand each other. And I will say we did at least connect on music. So in the morning sometimes when nobody was there, I was always playing my music, and because I listened to a little bit of everything, he would slowly open up and we would start talking about, like, you know, 60s, 70s soft rock and different things like that. So there were some bits where there was some traction of positivity, but when it was all said and done, it was like, I guess. So one of the things that the company would do was host these really, really big signature fundraising events. And I mean, these events would raise a lot of money. And at this point in time, the company needed it. And so with this event, it always happened in the spring. And sometimes it would be a really, really good year where it could raise upwards of $1.5 to $2 million. And then some years it was a little lackluster. You might have got $400,000 or $500,000 that you raised. And so this was one of those places where you go and you rent out the big giant banquet room at one of the hotels. It's like a $500 a plate ordeal. You get some local celebrities and media and press to come. And it's a big deal. You invite all of the stakeholders and the people who are the big wigs in the area to this event so they can donate and have the sponsorships and so on and so forth. But they also like to utilize the kids in this experience, because when it comes to fundraising, especially for nonprofits and people who work with youth, the best thing you can do is include the youth and let them share their experience of how coming to these different centers or being a part of the programs has helped their life. And so the company had been looking for some teenagers to participate. And in the past, my kids had never really been a part of a lot of the things in the organization before I got there. And I used to always feel some kind of way because I'm like, I have some great and talented kids around here. Like, what the heck? So, you know, I found a way to get my kids in. So this year, I had worked my magic and we were going to be in the building. Now, one of the things that I did that I always thought was really smart was, even though I worked at my center, I definitely was somebody who worked to be a vital part of the company. So people knew who I was outside of my center. I was involved in a lot of things, especially as the years would progress and we'd go further down the line. I really was kind of like a go-to person for a lot of things. But this year I was going to have my teenagers volunteer and work the reception before the big event. And I would have one of my teenagers actually present at the big banquet, and they would introduce one of the dignitaries who would go and present and do whatever they do. So I had this kid Peewee, who was a sophomore. Now his family was from Pakistan, and his family was so nice. His mother was just one of the nicest people in the neighborhood. She'd always speak. She'd come and bring us food. You know, if you had a free minute, she'd just come and have a nice conversation with you. Like, I love that about the neighborhood. Like, once you got to know all the families, so many of the families were so nice, and it really was a community there. That's one of the reasons why it was so hard to leave when I finally did, because it was just like, you never wanted to go. It was just like, I really got like a second childhood working there. But getting to my point, Belay also had a younger brother that had cerebral palsy, and so his parents worked so hard, and they weren't always available to make sure that even Belay was good sometimes because they were so occupied trying to just make it to the end of the month. And one of the things that used to kind of make me sad working where I worked is a lot of the times the parents had no idea how talented their kids were and the gifts that their kids had, because some of these parents worked so hard. Some of these parents had 2 and 3 jobs, and they meant well. They wanted to be at the recitals. They wanted to go to the spelling bees and the games, but they just weren't in a capacity to always do it. And so I remember talking to Belay's parents and saying, like, listen, I want you guys to come. I want you to see him do his presentation. It's going to mean a lot for him, and you guys are just going to be so proud that your son could do this. And so we were really trying to make this work because the father's schedule was not permitting. The mom, we were trying to figure out the situation because she also wanted to bring, you know, the younger brother, but, you know, he's going to be in the chair, so we had to figure out transportation on how to get him there, and I had to work with, you know, Metro to get transportation and the transport to get him to the venue. And so it was a day. Now, let me tell you some of the nonsense that took place. Dawn was the person that was selected as the staff member that would work with the teenagers in regards to who was volunteering. And so she was going to be over all the teenagers from the different clubs that volunteered. And she thought she was slick because the clubs that did have people that were supposed to bring teenagers, they were only supposed to bring a certain amount because there were only so many seats available in the venue for the banquet after the reception. And so what she ended up doing was she brought like 10 teenagers. She was supposed to bring like 4. Like my center, I think we had 3 or 4. She brought like 10. And what she ended up doing was she pretty much set my kids up to be volunteers for the entire thing, and then she was gonna have her teenagers take all of my kids' seats. So like what ended up happening is I'm not even in the mix of anything because I'm over here still working trying to get Belay stuff together, so I'm not even around like that. And Ava was there, and she was the one that was there with our teenagers. And so Ava and the teenagers, they're having a great time. You know, they're in their nice clothes because this is a really nice event, and a lot of times they don't get to go to some of these events. Again, this is one of these $500 a plate venues, and there are celebrities in the crowd. There's all kind of stuff going on. There's politicians that are there, people that are from the news, and so, you know, they're excited. So they're happy to volunteer and pass out pamphlets and tell the people about the center and what they do there. However, when the reception was over and all of these guests, because this is an event with like 1,000 people, all of the guests would go in the ballroom and take their seats, and then the dinner and the gala would start. And there were designated seats for the teenagers in the ballroom. And so they were supposed to go to the ballroom, have a seat, and enjoy the event. And now I had Belay with me. We were with the events management team because they're getting him all mic'd up and set up. I mean, this was like a big deal. There was folks with earpieces and walkie-talkies and security and all kind of stuff. So Belay was having a ball. He thought this was amazing. So, you know, the events management team was like, oh, we can take it from here. You're all good to go. Go ahead and enjoy yourself. Oh, okay, cool. So look, I went on to the reception, and then tell me why when I go to the bar, because hey, of course, I want to network with all the people at the reception as well. There's celebrities and stuff. And so boss lady sees me, I was like, well, what's the problem? Oh, no, you can't drink. Why? You're on the clock. I was like, no, I'm not. It's 8:30 at night. This is an event. My kids are here, but they ain't with me. They with Don. No, you can't drink. Now, mind you, she got a whole glass of whatever she has. She had 2 or 3 glasses because she moving real funny at this event, okay? That drink was kicking in. Just like the company Christmas party when she got too drunk that one time in the first episode of this season. I was like, oh, whatever. So, you know, I just got me some ginger ale and walked around. And then it didn't help. Then another person that works in the company stops me and they're like, excuse me, you're supposed to be with the other teenagers. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, all of the teenagers, you're supposed to be there. I'm like, I'm not a teenager. I'm a whole director of one of the centers. Huh? Really? Which one? You know what? I'm not even about to entertain this. I just walked off. I was like, I'm not doing this with y'all. So anyway, I worked the room and I'm just talking and networking. And so I end up running into Michelle Kwan. And now if you know her, she's the Olympic athlete. She was a figurine skater, won all these medals and everything. She and I have this great conversation and I tell her all about the kids that I work with and everything. And it's really, really cool. And so we just have a really great conversation. And I tell her, you know, one of my kids is going to be presenting and everything. She was like, oh, well, let's set it up and move him to my table. He can come sit with us. Oh, okay, cool. And then Michelle ends up actually setting things up where, because I told her I had some teenagers that were there as well that were mine, and she was like, oh, I'll have all of you guys. You guys can all be taken care of, because apparently whoever was in her entourage, there were some people that weren't going to be there, so she wanted some more people at her table. So she had just enough seats for all of us. So me, Belay, the 3 or 4 teenagers that I brought with me, and Ava and everything. I'm like, okay, great. And so I was like, this is perfect. And so anyway, we all go into the ballroom and the event has started. Now, I cannot seem to find Ava and I can't find my teenagers. I have Belay with me, you know, he's backstage getting ready to come out. I know where he's at, and you know, I cannot find Ava and them. And so I'm like, what the heck? So the event has started and everything, and you know, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. And I'm like, huh? So I text Ava like, hey, where are y'all? And Ava's like, Don told us that we have to stay here for the whole event. I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, we have to stay here. I was like, stay there and do what? There's nobody there. Everybody's in here. And so I look, and that's when I look and I see Don, like, now mind you, they in the back, okay? They ain't where I'm sitting. I'm at a front table, okay? Me and Michelle Kwan at a table together. And so Don is in the back where, you know, the teenagers are supposed to be. And what ended up happening is she knew that she wasn't supposed to bring no 10 teenagers because there weren't going to be enough seats for them, which is why all of the people who had teenage volunteers, we were limited to like 3 or 4 because they had just enough seats for everybody to have a place to sit. And so she knew that because she had 10, somebody had to be collateral. So she gave Ava all the wrong information because Ava ain't never been in one of these. This is her first event. And so she's just trying to be a team player and, you know, do everything right. And so she done told Ava, oh yeah, y'all are just going to stay and work the reception the whole time just in case people step outside of the banquet and come back to the bar or anything like that, which none of them are going to do because it's a banquet. They already got wine and everything else at the tables. And so I was like, this heifer thinks she's slick, because I even looked in the back and I saw that whole back section with her and her teenagers just having a good time, you know, laughing and stuff. I was like, oh really? So my kid's just gonna be the help. Okay, so I had texted Ava like, hey, I don't know what she told you, but F that. Come to table number blah 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 blah, which was the table we were at. I don't remember the number. And so it was so good because, you know, they're having this banquet. The doors open because the event has already started. And so of course when those doors open, it's like the light from the hallway peeks into the whole ballroom. It's like everybody turns around to look. Here's Ava and my teenagers just looking fly. They got the outfits and everything. And so they walk in. Don is looking all crazy like, what are they doing in here? And the best part is watching them walk past Don all the way to the front table where I'm at, and of course it's the table with Michelle Kwan and all these people. Like, my kids and Ava look so freaking fly. It was so good. Don is in the back like seething like, what the fuck are they doing? I was like, I just looked at Don like, see, touch not my anointed, okay? I always got a plan. You ain't about to set my kids up, because I wanted my kids to have a great experience as well. And I'm like, see, had you just been honest, you know, hey, you might have been able to have some of the luck that I had, but you were so busy trying to be shady and everything. So enjoy that seat in the back by the door in the trash cans. We're up here towards the front, okay? How's the view from back there? It was so funny. And so again, one of the issues that I had run into was trying to ensure that Belay's parents and his family would be at the event, because for me it was important. I wanted the parents to see like, hey, this is your son on stage at this multi-million-dollar fundraiser, and look at him doing vital, important work. Like, it might just be a small thing because all he's doing is introducing one of the speakers, but you know what? This is an event that's going to raise a lot of money, and it's going to positively benefit over 20,000 kids, and your son is a part of that. Like, I just wanted a lot of the parents to start to see what it is that their kids were doing. And so at that point, Mom and the younger brother were at the banquet. I got everything squared away with DC Transit and getting a special, you know, transport for the brother, because again, he was in the chair and you couldn't just put him in any kind of car. You needed a transport vehicle that had a lift and you could strap him in and get him to the venue. So they're at the banquet. Mom is there, happy, excited. The brother's there. And again, they're at a table in the front as well. So all of us are sitting up here. Like, me and my kids, we up at the front, okay? This is some top tier stuff. That's why I'm still being petty, because it was just so shady what Don did. So I was enjoying where we were sitting. But the father, he was able to get off, but the challenge was now he's trying to get to the venue, and you're running into the issues with traffic, and he's still going to be in his work clothes. And so, you know, they're having this banquet, and when they get to the portion where they start, you know, passing out the food and stuff, that's when the banquet is not as formal. You can kind of get up and walk around and talk to folks and stuff. And so here comes Boss Lady, who's so cuckoo. Like, I'm, you know, on my phone back and forth talking with the father and trying to get stuff squared away. She comes to me because Boss Lady's not at my table. She's at another table, and she's like, I have someone very important for you to meet. I'm like, who? Olympic medalist Michelle Kwan. Oh, I'm sitting at her table. Huh? Yeah, I'm at her table. I met her like an hour ago. We're good. Look over there. Look at the table. Yeah, see? She's over there. Oh, but Boss Lady, there's a bigger issue. So Belay's father is on the way, and he's coming straight from work. So then Boss Lady's like, well, is he going to be in a suit and tie? I was like, I don't know, but if he's not, is that going to be a problem? And she's like, yes, because this is a black tie affair. And I said, boss lady, what is not about to happen is I am not about to deny a parent the opportunity to see their child be great. So I'm going to tell you right now, if he comes in here in jeans and a hard hat, I'm still going to walk him right up to the front table, and he's going to sit right there and get to see his son. Because if we're talking about positively impacting a community, we don't get to dictate who we want to support or who we want to celebrate. We celebrate everybody as is in the space that they're in. That's not how we're about to do stuff. And so she was like, I'm just saying, you know, there are rules. I'm like, oh, whatever. Mind you, she half drunk, like, get out of my face. And so I'm on the phone with the father. He makes it just in time for Belay as Belay is getting escorted to the stage. And so I come and I pretty much have, you know that fast walk where it's like, come on. We're walking. I get him to the table and he's excited. He has his camera. He got like the roll up Polaroid with the film that you develop afterwards. He was so excited. And so it was so good. I was so happy that his family got to see it. And I mean, it was just a really, really great night. I was on such a high. I was so happy that the family got to see it. And then the parents said, thank you. I was like, finally, because sometimes you don't be getting too many thank yous in this work. You know, you do all kind of stuff and folks think you're just supposed to do it just because. And so, I mean, they were so moved. And of course, I made sure, like, the father didn't even realize that he had, access to the entire banquet and there was going to be a plate for him. Because again, by the time he got there, people had already been eating and everything, so he thought he was just supposed to sit. I'm like, oh no, you about to get your plate too. You want some wine? And so they bring him the food. He passed on the wine, and he got to eat and enjoy the entire event. It was such a good night. I was like, man. And so, yeah, just understand, it's funny when folks try to do some shady stuff because the way that the cards always align, and I will say, in this field, there were so many moments where people used to try my kids or try my center because we were the smaller center or we were the center that didn't have all the extreme gadgets and the big gyms and everything. Folks used to try it with us, and they used to try it with Ava as well. They used to think that Ava was somebody that wasn't in a space to, do what she does. And it's so funny because years later when we look back, and you'll get to hear about these accolades as we get further into the episodes, things just align. So again, don't play with me. Like, don't play with us, all right? And what made it even better, as the event had wrapped and everybody's saying their goodbyes and all that great stuff, CEO comes to me and she's like, Michael, I have to say, I was so impressed by your group of kids. I mean, they were poised, they were personable, people enjoyed having conversations with them. Belay was amazing on the stage because, they had Belay's lines and stuff written out. There was like a joke on the paper he had to tell, and he just nailed it when he did his presentation and introduced the speaker at the time. And so CEO was like, I mean, you guys I was so proud. I was so proud. And just know, I see the work that you guys are doing over there. Just know it has not gone unnoticed, and you're gonna definitely be something in this company. And I just, I'm feeling myself like it really was a good night. And then as the icing on the cake, it's the end of the event and everybody's kind of, working their way on out. And I'm getting ready to go home. I did not drive the bus with the teenagers and Ava because they actually rolled with another center that's maybe 10 or 11 minutes away from ours. Like the same center where the soccer league would play their games. Like we're all in the same area right off the same road. And so they had all carpooled together. I had to be there earlier because Belay needed to do sound check and test everything with the teleprompter and his notes for his presentation. So he and I had been there a few hours earlier anyway, but he was going to be going back home with his father and the mom because the father's vehicle is one where it has the lift, so his whole family, they're going together, so they're accounted for, and then Ava and the teenagers, they're accounted for. And so I'm like, all right, I'm about to get in my car and head on home. It's been a great night. And then out of nowhere, as I'm getting ready to go and head home, here comes Don. Hey Mike, hey Mike. And I'm like, what's up? Because listen, I'm still annoyed with her. It was a great night, but I still got some smoke for her. She was gonna catch it later on down the line. And because I'm still like, just the optics of doing some mischievous stuff. And I understand everybody wants their kids to have a great experience, so I get it. You wanted your 10 to have a great time, but at that moment it was already agreed upon that we could only bring so many, that way everybody could have a great experience. And you were gonna let my kids be collateral to your ego and your greed. Plus my kids, the optics of having my kids and Ava, who all happen to be black, pretty much out in the hallway where the reception used to be, but the reception is over because it's now time for the banquet, and giving them the false instruction that they have to stand out there and manage the area, knowing that they didn't have to, but you just wanted to have a seat. Just the optics of that don't sit right with me. I'm like, you tried it, so you and your group get to have a great time. You're gonna send the black kids out in the hall and just stand out there and look crazy. And it's like, had I not sent Ava that text or kind of checked in to make sure they were good, they would have missed the whole banquet. They would have not even had anything to eat. They wouldn't have had any of that. That way, Dawn and her 10 kids could have a great time. And it's nothing against Dawn's kids. I have no smoke with other people's teenagers and kids and stuff, because they rightfully so should have a great time as well. But it's like, again, that was just real messed up. But anyway, so Dawn is like, hey, how are you guys getting back? And so I'm being petty at this point, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, the same way we got here. And she's like, oh, because, you know, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get back, because I don't know what happened, but long story short, their ride fell through. And if you remember from the last episode, Dawn does not drive the bus, right? That's why I was talking about the one time when they had some kind of field trip, and I was trying to be nice, so I ended up having to take her kids to some event on my day off. And before it was even time to go and pick the kids up, she's going to send me that message talking about, it's imperative that you show up on time. I'm like, first of all, I'm doing y'all a favor. Y'all can so anyway, you know, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, man, I guess you can probably reach out to boss lady, because look, my kids are already on the way out with Ava. They've already rode and carpooled with the other center. They're on the way home. Belay's with his father, they're accounted for. I drove my car. Y'all can't fit in my car. And you know, we got rules. We're not supposed to drive the kids in our cars. You know, I just want to be a team player and follow the rules here. And so I'm like, look, you better talk to boss lady, because boss lady was still here. And I'm also thinking like, you know what, in the same way that you and boss lady conspired that one time, and y'all are gonna try to fire Ava because she was not available on Tuesdays and Thursdays because she was still taking her college courses, and you sat in that meeting and said, oh, my one wish is to ensure that all of the staff at the basement location work at the basement location. And it was a dig at Ava, because at that point in time, people from the basement location used to have to come to my center on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Ava was in class. And this is only in response to the fact that when boss lady hired Ava, there was another girl that also got hired that would have been the fill-in for those additional days, but people were not honest about the job description. They were not honest with the fact that the position was not full-time, and they were not honest about the pay. And so the girl quit on day one, and so Ava still stayed, and they thought they could just get rid of Ava too. And I'm like, Ava didn't do nothing wrong. She did everything she was supposed to do. So no, she's not going anywhere. That's not how this works. And so I'm over here having all these flashbacks like, yeah, you were going to have me almost pretty much get rid of my teammate, you know, and the relationships that she's established with my kids and everything, just because y'all want to have everybody over there. Y'all already got like 5 or 6 or 7 staff members. So, wow, it's funny how things come back full circle. So now the very people that you despise, and the very people you literally just set up 2 hours ago to be bamboozled, now you need us. All right. So I was like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. So, you know, I went ahead and enjoyed my evening. They got back. I think boss lady made some kind of arrangement, and one of the other staff from the basement location had to, you know, pretty much leave their home and go to the basement location and pick up one of the buses, and then get in the bus and drive all the way to DC from that part of Virginia, and then pick them up and bring them all the way back. I was like, I know they're pissed over there, but you know what? Not my concern. And so, you know, I hate to be that petty person, but sometimes it's like, lay in that bed that you have made for yourself and get comfortable. And I hope you have a really nice 4,000 thread count set of Egyptian cotton sheets, because man, some of y'all just dig yourselves into a lot of foolery and then want everybody to help you get out of it. Not I, said the cat. But with that being said, there is so much more that goes down during the school year, and if I jump into the second half, this episode is going to be like 3 hours, so I need to go ahead and break it up. So join me for the next episode, because man, there's so much that we still have to cover. I mean, I had to break up a fight between Mr. Craig and John, and man, don't get me started on that summer camp. When I tell you, of the 10 summer camps that I ran while I was there, that summer camp of 2013 had to be the worst experience ever. We had partnered with a nearby center that was from a different agency, and just know, I'm not even about to spoil it, you just have to be here. So yeah, there's a whole lot more that goes down. I gotta talk about a certain birthday party where somebody passed out during the middle of the birthday party and they got rolled out into the sidewalk. All kind of crazy stuff went down. So join me for the next episode. Until next time.